Good. So they're looking at the same set of facts, right? This is blood from a korban mixed with other blood from another korban. So is the fact that they are both korbanos the main point, and that's why they are not nullified? Or is it the fact that they're both blood and they're the same type, and that's why they're not nullified? Okay, Tanan. We learned in a Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda says, B'minchas kohen Mashiach, b'minchas nesachim psula, if our Mishnah says that if we have a mincha from an anointed kohen gadol, and the mincha of the animals, so then that mixes together with a kmitza of a regular korban, so then it's pasul. Why? Shezu blila sa'ava v'zu blila saraka, because this is a thick mixture and this is a thin mixture. Vehein bolos zumizu, and it's going to absorb the extra oil from the thinner mixture. So v'chi bolas zumizu mahavi. So the question is against Rabbi Yehuda. Who cares if it absorbs the oil? It's oil mixing with oil, and at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So it's min b'mino. It's the same oil and oil. So therefore, if it's min b'mino, right? So then it's not batal. And why is there a problem with it? So Amar Rava. So Rava says Kasavar Rabbi Yehuda. You know what Rabbi Yehuda holds in Chaf Gimel Lamed Aleph? Kol shehu min b'mino v'davar acher solek es mino k'misha eino. So he says what happens is this flour, there's this oil. If you've got oil and other oil, and there's another item mixed in as well, i.e. the flour that's here, so then the other type of item is not considered, and what we wind up with is we've got flour mixture with the kmitza, with the flour mixing with the oil, and those are two things that are not the same type. It's not the same type because it's a mixture of the two things. So therefore, v'she'eno mino rabba alav mevatlo. The item, the flour, which has way more on it, is going to overpower. Or sorry, the whatever it is. That's, I guess, I'm not sure which is more, because one's a liquid measure, one's a solid measure. The isaron or the lug, whichever one is more, is going to overpower the other one and nullify it. So therefore, we don't consider it the same type of items, and that's why it's a mixture of two things already. That's why it's not min b'mino. That's why it's different. Okay, itmar. So what we are saying is kometz de minchas chote shimno. Let's say I've got a kmitza from a mincha of the chote, right? We had talked about that there were circumstances where you've got this sin offering that's a korban mincha. It's the olive yored case, right? If you're richer, you bring an animal. If you're poor, you bring just the flour. That offering has no oil with it, generally speaking. And you put some oil on it, right? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Pasul. Rabbi Yochanan says it's pasul. Can't put oil onto the mincha. And Reish Lakish Amar. Reish Lakish says, "Hu atzmo mishach shecho b'shiyore halug." He says, "No, what are you talking about? It's supposed to. The mitzvah in the first place is to get some oil onto this, right? Uma alehu, and then to bring it onto the mizbech. How are you getting oil?
Maybe you borrow some oil from your friend and."
Well, then it's chulin, right? Can't use non-sanctified oil, so we must be getting this oil from some other place. So the Gemara wants to know, the haksiv lo yasim aleh hashemen. It says right in the pasuk you're not supposed to put oil on it. So the lo yitin aleh levoni, you're supposed to put frankincense on it. So hu shelo yikbal hashemen. Reish Lakish says that means that we're not supposed to bring its own oil. We're not supposed to put oil with this offering. However, chavroseha, but like you would put by other types of offerings, meaning other menachos, you put the flour in, you put the oil in, and that's how you sanctify. This one, the oil that it's going to mix with doesn't come from its own offering. Where does it come from? So says Tosfos. Tosfos says, very interesting, that the oil, let's say you're doing another mincha, and the oil is left over like residue from the inside of the basin from the last mincha. And now you put the minchas chote in, you're okay. Why? Because he says that the Torah was not given to malachim, right? Meaning, you're not going to get all the oil out. You don't have to worry about it. That's okay. Even though the minchas chotzi is not supposed to get any oil in, you've got some leftover oil from the last offering. You don't have to go they didn't have, I guess, the dishwashing detergent that gets the oil out, right? So there, they would even wipe it out. The oil residue is still there. It's still okay. We have many types of halachos that are like this, where we say that it is not our responsibility to go overboard in order to keep halacha, right? It's supposed to be regular standard practice. And so even in this case, you would say, okay, fine, well, let's get a towel, dry it off, get another utensil. No, you don't have to. It's lo nitam l'malachim. It's perfectly okay. Not only that, but Reish Lakish uses it as a proof. It says not only is it perfectly okay, that's the mitzvah, that's the way it's done. And therefore, if you get other oil, and it's not the end of the world. Not a problem. Okay, so Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan or Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asked Reish Lakish the following question. Charev shenis ariv bebolul. Let's say I've got a dry mincha together with a mixed dough mincha, the one that's mixed up with oil. So yakriv, so I'm allowed to, it's kosher to mix those two together and to burn them. Now, why is that? Because the Rabbanan are going according to their own opinion that if these two kmitzos, these two items are going to be burned in the Mizbeach anyway, they're not batal. So it's okay. And Rabbi Yehuda, he disagrees and he says, Omer lo yakriv, you're not allowed to. Why? Because it's min b'she'eno mino, they're not the same type, and therefore they're not batal, right? The Chacham say it is, but it's not, sorry, it is batal, right? So therefore you're going to wind up, so the oil is going to be nullified by the flour that's in these combined offerings, and you won't be able to bring it. So now, my love kometz de minchas chote. What offerings are we talking about? So it must be a kmitza from a minchas chote, right? Because that's the dry offering. You take the kmitza, that's going to be burned on the mizbeach. De ariv bekomas de minchas nendava, which mixes together with the kmitza of a donated offering, which has oil to it. And so therefore, right, so this is going to be a problem for Reish Lakish, right? Because Reish Lakish had said that there was no problem putting oil on it. And here it seems very clear that there is a problem, right? It comes nullified, and it's the only, according to the Rabbanan, the only reason it's not nullified is because of the olos issue, because it's olin on mizbeach issue. But otherwise, it would be nullified. And according to Yehuda, it is nullified. Why should it be nullified? You should have no problem adding the extra oil, according to Reish Lakish. So the answer is low. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about minchas parim ve'elim beminchas kivasim. We're talking about the oil that gets brought together with bulls and rams. You take a look. Shouldn't close it so fast, right? The bulls and the rams have more oil together. They're larger animals. Bulls and rams are going to have 6 lug of oil, and rams are going to have 4 lug of oil, right? That's a larger amount of oil compared to a sheep, a keves offering, which only has 3 lug of oil, right? So that's the dry one versus the moist one, right? Well, it's a 3-to-2 ratio. It might have to be the other way around, right? So the so it's a 3 lug to 1 isaron ratio by the sheep, right? Versus a 3 isaron to 6 lug ratio, which is a lesser ratio. It's drier by the larger one because there's more flour. So therefore, Rabbi Yehuda's puzzle the mixture because the thick one is going to mix together with the thin one, and because of the extra oil that's in it, it's going to become nullified because it's not min b'mino as we described, right? However, right, if you had a minchas chote which mixed together with the nedava, it wouldn't be a problem because he says it's no problem to mix oil into a dry offering, right? It's only these other offerings where you've got a thick mixture and a thin mixture that Rabbi Yehuda says it's a problem. Okay, now problem is v'ha behedya katanile, but problem is that we've got a brisa. The brisa then continues on and says not only is it talking about a dry one mixing with a oil mixture, it then continues and it says minchas parim ve'elim and minchas kivasim. If I mix my mincha of bulls and rams together with my mincha of sheep, ve'cherev shinis arev bebolo, or a dry offering that mixes with a oil and flour offering, yikrav, then you can bring it. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer lo yikrav, and Rabbi Yehuda says you cannot. So therefore, how can you say that that the dry offering and the dry offering is the bull offering and because it says that lists those two as 2 separate types of offerings. So the answer is Pirushi Kamafarish. The way you read the Mishnah is the first line is explaining the second line, right? What is a bull offering and a sheep offering is a dry offering and a liquidy offering, and that's why you can't mix the two of those two things together. Not that you can't mix oil into a minchas chote. Rabbi Reish Lakish insists you can get oil into a minchas chote kmitza. That's not a problem. Okay, boy Rava. Rava asks the following question. Kometz shemitza shamno al gabe eitzim. Let's say the Kohen is up there. He's got his kmitza flour with some oil, and he gets to the fire, and he squeezes, and a drop of oil comes out and drips into the fire. Okay, so mahu, what happens there? Chibure olin keolin damu, olav keolin damu. What happens is now you're missing a drop of oil from your kmitza. So does it become a missing kmitza and it's invalid? Or you just throw it into the fire now and it mixes together with the oil that's already in the fire and everything comes back together and you're okay. So Amarli Ravina, Ravashi, Ravina says to Ravashi, Lav Hainu de Rabbi Yochanan of Reish Lakish. That is the point of the argument between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Why is Rava so unaware of that? De Itmar, because we said in the base medrash, Hamale Aver She'ein Bo Kazayis, Ve'etzem, right? We had discussed this in Maseches Vachin as well. If somebody brings an animal that has flesh and bone on it together, right? And you're burning it outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So you're having a problem of what we said was Haktoras Chutz. You're burning a korban outside of the Beis Hamikdash.
All animals have flesh and bone on them?
Yes, they do, right? So, but the problem is that you need to have a kazayis to burn in order to be liable for burning outside. This now you have a combination of bone and flesh in order to make your kazayis. So it says, we said, and so now this bone fills up, mashlim kazayis fills up the kazayis. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev, Rabbi Yochanan says that combines together. And you're Chayev, Reish Lakish Amar Potter, Reish Lakish says you're exempt. So Reish Lakish, so Rabbi Yochanan Amar Chayev, why does Rabbi Yochanan say you are liable? Because chibure olin keolin damu, that when you have two items that are part of a korban, they're considered mixed together. So bone and meat mixed together. Hence, the oil that dripped into the fire, once you put the rest of the kmitza on, it combines together and it comes back together. V'Reish Lakish Amar Potter, Reish Lakish disagrees. He says you're exempt, chiburi olin lav keolin damo, because he holds that the mixture of korbanos are not together. Meat is meat, bone is bone, and so therefore they don't combine. Therefore, the oil that splashed out and got into the fire does not recombine with the rest of the kmitza when you drop it in. So why was Rava not aware of what the halacha is? The answer is it depends on an argument between Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan. So the answer is no. Those two arguments are unrelated. Tiboi le Rabbi Yochanan, v'tiboi le Reish Lakish. It's going to be a question according to Rabbi Yochanan or Reish Lakish either way. Tiboi le Rabbi Yochanan. How is it a question according to Rabbi Yochanan? Ad kan lo amar Rabbi Yochanan hasam el be'etzem demina de basarhu. You know why Rabbi Yochanan holds that bone and meat combine? Because they're the same thing. Right? They are part of the animal together. But aval hai, but here the oil, de lav mina de kometzi, it's not the same type of item as the flour of the kmitza. So lo, they wouldn't combine. O dilma, or you should look at the other way. Afilu Reish Lakish lo ka'amar ela be'etzem. While Reish Lakish only holds that the meat and the bone don't combine when it's meat and bone. De bar mifreshu, because they're two separate items. Meat and bone are two separate things. So the e parish lav mitzvah ladure. If the bone were to pop out of the fire after it was placed in, you don't have to take the bone and put it back in the fire. Meat has to burn, the bone does not. So if the bone pops out, it's done. You don't have to put it back in. Aval shemen, but the oil, de lav bar mifreshu, it isn't separated. It's mixed together with the kmitza in the same container, and therefore it would recombine. So therefore, lo, odom v'lo, maybe it makes no difference. So the relationship between the meat and the bone has nothing to do with the relationship with this piece of oil that dripped out. Those are two different things altogether. Says the next Mishnah. And Teku. Teku. That's what I'm saying. Says in the next Mishnah, and I realize I should have brought my other Gemara as well, but when I get to the bottom of the page, I'll have to borrow another Gemara. Says the next Mishnah, if we get there, we got 10 minutes, right? So we'll see if I should get there. Shtei menachos shahayu shalo nikmitzu. If I've got two menachos that I did not do kmitza with them yet, v'nis arvu zu bazu, and the two menachos get mixed together in the same utensil. Okay? So if you can take a scoop from this side, and you can take a scoop from the other side, ksheros, then you're fine. Why? Because if you take a scoop from here and a scoop from here, then you're going to burn those 2 kmitzos, no problem. And everything that's left in the bowl is your shirayim, your leftovers, and all of that is edible. So no problem. V'im lav, but if you can't, if it's mixed together to such a degree that you can't take the kmitza for both of them, then they're puzzle. Why? Because if I only take a kmitza for one, then I can't even burn that kmitza, because the leftover shirayim that's in there, the leftovers, is mixed together with a invalid offering, and I cannot eat that shirayim because I can't eat the rest of the mixture. So therefore, if I can't take the kmitza from both, then the offering is no good. They're both puzzle.
Edible
is critical to the kmitza, right? If I lose, remember that we had learned that if I had take my kmitza and I lose all of my shirayim, I lose my shirayim, I cannot eat, I cannot burn my kmitza. Kometz shenis arev b'mincha. So let's say I've got my kmitza and it mixes together with a mincha shelo nikmitza, with another mincha that has not had kmitza done with it yet. So then lo yaktir, don't burn it, right? Now you're stuck because you're not allowed to burn. You're going to see there's a pasuk that says you're not allowed to burn shirayim on the mizbeach. Once you take the kmitza off of an offering, you can't burn the rest. They can't burn the shirayim. Pasuk says don't burn it. It says you're supposed to eat it. So therefore, it's a losa. Say don't burn it. So now you'd think, well, okay, if I mix it together with the other, just burn the. You can't burn it. Vim hiktir. Now, if you do burn it, right? So you're not supposed to. You violated a losa. Say you did it. Zu shenik mitzah olo lebalim. The one that you did, if you burn this kmitza, so then it counts for the owner, right? Because you still had the shirayim left. You're not supposed to, but if you did, it works. V'zu shelo nikmitza lo alulabalim. The one that you didn't do the kmitza from, the offering that remained in the container, you didn't do kmitza from, does not work for its owner. Nisarev komtza b'shiareha. Let's say you take the kmitza and then you drop it back into the container. Oops. And now it mixes together with the original leftovers.
Okay, it should be invalid.
O b'shiareh shel chaverta, or you mix it into the leftovers of some other offering. Lo yaktir, you cannot burn it, like Yehuda says. Why? Because if you burned it, then you'd be burning some of this offering that's not the shirayim, that's not supposed to be burnt. Vim hiktir, but if you do burn it, ola lebalim, it does work. Right? It is effective because at the end of the day, you did burn your kmitza. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Nevela betela b'shchuta. Okay, so in our mixtures, right, we have a large amount of something and we have a small amount of something. The large amount of something is red. The small amount of something is green. The large we call the thing that is nullifying. We call that the mevatel, the thing that nullifies.
Whoever made the picture is an artist.
Right. The thing that is being nullified is called the batel. That is being nullified. This is nullifying. This is being nullified. The rule in such a case is it all has the halacha of the larger amount. It's nullified, this gets absorbed in, and so it all becomes mixed together. So now, Rav Chisda says, right, Nevela betela b'shchuta. If I have non-properly slaughtered meat, and it gets mixed together with slaughtered meat, so then it is batal. She'iyavshar l'shchuta she'te'aseh nevela. Because it's not possible for the slaughtered meat to become non-kosher meat. So basic bottom line is that he holds that the mevatel, right, that Rav Chisda holds that this mevatel has to be unable, right? He says that this is according to Rav Chisda, Rav Chisda's version, the mevatel is, we'll call his, let's write it here, Rav Chisda. The mevatel is the shchuta, the slaughtered meat, and the batel is the nevela, the non-slaughtered meat. Okay, so if I have that circumstance, the shchuta and the nevela, so if the then the nevela can never, since the nevela cannot become the slaughtered meat, because once it's not properly slaughtered, it's not kosher. The other way around. The shchuta, the slaughtered meat, cannot become nevela. Once it's slaughtered, it can never become non-kosher. So therefore, the nevela gets swallowed up by it. Okay? So, however, if it was the other way around, if it was the other way, right? Say now we cross paths and we flip it. Let's say the nevela is the majority and the shchuta is the minority. So then, shchuta eina mevat betela benevela. If I have the minority is the slaughtered meat and the majority is the non-slaughtered meat, that is not batal. Why? Because the nevela can become slaughtered meat. How does non-kosher meat become kosher meat? The answer is not really, right? It's not going to become kosher meat that you can eat. However, there are two rules by non-slaughtered meat by a nevela. One rule is that you can't eat it because it's not kosher. But there's a second issue to it, and that is that it transmits tumah, right? If you lift it, you carry it, it transmits tumah. So, however, the rule of it being able to transmit tumah, as we're going to see in a little bit, is delechi misarcha. Once it spoils, parcha tumasa, then it doesn't remain tameh anymore. Spoiled non-kosher meat no longer transmits tumah. So it becomes like slaughtered meat in that regard. So since nevela becomes like...
spoiled, if it gets spoiled, it's not edible anymore.
Correct. Once it's not edible, the tumah goes away. So therefore, since nevela can become slaughtered, so therefore the way Rav Chisda holds, he says that the slaughtered meat cannot be nullified in non-slaughtered meat. Right? So Rav Chanina learns it the exact opposite way. He says, Rav Chanina Amar, Kol she'efshar lo lios kamohu, eino batal, v'chol she'efshar lo lios kamohu batal. He says, anything that it can become like the other item, it's not nullified. But anything which is impossible for it to become like the other item is batal. So aliba deman. So now, who is this that we're dealing with here? Aliba de rabbanon. So they're learning exactly the opposite. One says that the focus is what is the larger item, right? Is it the larger item? If the smaller item can become the larger item, so then it's not nullified. But if the smaller item becomes the larger item, then it's not nullified. But if the smaller item cannot be, then it is. And the other one learns it reversed, right? It's the larger item has to become the smaller item, then it's not nullified. But if the larger item cannot, then it is. So therefore, right, they basically learn it backwards. Are we focused on the larger item or the smaller item? Can it become the other way around? So who is this according to? This idea that an item to be nullified to the other depends on its ability to become the other item, right? When is something not nullified? When it's min b'mino, right? That's the issue here. So if it's the same thing, if it becomes the other thing, then it's min b'mino, right? So then it's not nullified. So who are we dealing with? If we're dealing with the Rabbanon, ha'amri olin hu jelo mevatli ha'dadi aval min b'mino batal. The rabbis say that even if it's the same type, it's nullified. Right? You can still nullify two things of the same type. So it's not relevant whether one can become the other or not. Has nothing to do with them. They hold that pasuk is talking about things being on the mizbeach. This is regular slaughtered meat and regular non-kosher meat. There's no way those two things are related. So liba de Rabbi Yehuda, if we're discussing according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, right? Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say anything about one item being able to become the other item. Rabbi Yehuda, basar chazusa azil. He says you go by what it looks like. This is meat, this is meat. So if it's both meat, then they're not nullified. Min b'mino. We're on Chaf Gimel on base. So min b'mino. So basar chazusa azil. Ve'idi min b'mino. So in both min b'minohu. So both the case where the nevela can become the since the nevela can become the shchuta, it doesn't matter whether the nevela is the majority or the minority. It's not an issue of Rav Chisda and Rav Chia, right? Rav Chia and Rav Chisda it's Rav Chisda and who was the other one? Rabbi Chanina. Rav Chisda and Rav Chanina. It's not a matter of which one is the majority and which one is the minority, like they say. Either way, meat and meat. Rabbi Yehuda just says meat and meat. They're not batal. So the answer is no. Ela aliba de Rabbi Chia must be according to Rabbi Chia. Detani Rabbi Chia learned like this: nevela ushchuta batelas zu bazu. Right? A nevela and slaughtered meat and non-slaughtered meat, they can be nullified one and the other. They're not the same. Rabbi Chia aliba deman. But the problem is even Rabbi Chia, okay, so I understand, you're right, One does not know. It's going to be an argument between the two of them, which one's the majority, which one's the minority, right? But he holds that you can't nullify non-slaughtered meat with slaughtered meat. Well, who's the Rabbi Yechia going according to? Ila liba de Rabbanan, if it was the Rabbanan's point of view, ha-amri olin hu delo mevatli ha-dadi hamin b'mino batil. So according to the Rabbanan, they say that even two items of the same type would nullify. So if you've got two pieces of meat, of course it would be nullified. One's slaughtered, one's not slaughtered. They look the same. Of course it's nullified. Via liba de Rabbi Yehuda, if you're going according to Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, kol min b'mino the Rabbi Yehuda lo batal. Any two types of meat that are the same, they're both meat, they're not nullified. So no, liolam al liba de Rabbi Yehuda. It's their argument is within Rabbi Yehuda's perspective. V'chi ka'amar Rabbi Yehuda min b'mino lo batal. The question is, when does Rabbi Yehuda hold that two items of the same type cannot nullify each other? Hanimili hecha de'efshar le'le mahave kavaseh. That's if one of the items can turn into the other item. Then they're the same. However, aval hecha de lo efshar le'le mahave kavaseh. However, if like the two items cannot become each other, even though they look like they're both meat, but one has one type of halach, one has the other, batal, then it does nullify. Okay, and ubaha kamiflagi de Rav Chisda, ubaha kamiflagi, and that's what Rav Chisda and Rabbi Chanina are arguing about. De Rav Chisda savar basal mevatel azlinan. Rav Chisda says, and this is why we drew this picture, right? Rav Chisda says we are going according to the mevatel. Right? We look and we see, can the mevatel change into the other thing or not? All right, the mevatel, if this item can become this item, then it's not able to nullify. And Rabbi Chanina savar basar batal azlinon. And Rabbi Chanina says, no, we look at the lesser item. Can the lesser item become the larger item or not? Okay, so that's a place for us to stop. We'll continue on.
It's Tanan, right?
It's non, yes.
Yep.
So we're going to ask some questions to be able to see, according to Reb Chanina versus Reb Chisda. Are we looking at the mevatel or are we looking at the batal? We'll review that, what the difference in that is tomorrow again, so that we can go through this.
Hopefully tomorrow we'll